brother, I missed that. Yeah. So somebody from the tribe of praise and the tribe of judgment.
Judgment. Okay. That's what we want.
That's a beautiful thought. Thank you, brother. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Wow.
It's already on.
Judah and Dan. Yeah.
You could go ahead, Brother Sam, and answer the question. Ask the question.
A blessed afternoon to all. Am I being heard clearly? Am I being heard? I'm going to assume that I am. Brother Nathan, this question is for you. Thank you for your talk. Much, much appreciated. I want some understanding. I know you gave a few hints at what it might be, but I want some clearer understanding in terms of David's remarkable assurance that God's help would be available to him, to the degree that he says in Psalm 3, I laid me down and slept. I awake, for the Lord sustained me. Now I'm asking this question in the context of, given the fact of his own grievous sin and his obvious awareness of its consequential effects upon him, as prophesied by God through Nathan the prophet, that he will raise up trouble in his own house and so on. What was the basis? What could have accounted for the level of assurance that David expressed here in this psalm and the other psalms that you took us to, given the heinousness of his sin, particularly the cold, premeditated murder of a loyal servant of him? I just want to get a sense of what kind of thought processes you would have had to engage to come to that settled assurance that God was going to help him to that degree and extent that he could rest, in comfort, even though surrounded by thousands of enemies.
Sam, it's a really good question. Can you hear me, Sam?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think it's a really good question, Sam, and it's something that I struggle with every time I open the Psalms as well, right? In the back of your mind, you're always like, but David did some really bad stuff. But David did some really bad stuff, But David, maybe David deserved this stuff. And I think all of us wrestle with that as we go through the Psalms. So we're always trying to reconcile David's mistakes with his faithfulness and God's allowing him to, or bringing him to some sleep at times. But it's really, it actually makes the Psalms more real. And I think it makes David's life more real because we're no different than David, right? We're in the same situation as him if we're honest with ourselves. We've all done heinous things, whether acting it out or in our minds or at different periods in our life, different phases in our life, right? So we're all in the same situation. And I think a lot of it boils down to grace and forgiveness of God. So David was able to work through all these things, realize there was consequences for what he had done, accepting those, but also realizing at the same time that God could forgive him if he was willing to change and admit what he had done, and God could give grace to that situation moving forward. And the amazing thing about David is that he could admit that he had done bad things. God was able to put that in the background. There were consequences that he was dealing with, like even with Absalom. I think that was a consequence of some of the stuff he had done with Bathsheba, and we'll take a look at some of that stuff later on. But I think it was God's forgiveness in the end that allowed him to have some peace in working through this and accepting that God could forgive him. And it's the same process, that's important in our life as well, to understand at some point that, yeah, we've done some pretty bad stuff, but God can forgive us. There is hope, and we still can get sleep, and we still can get into it we can still be in his kingdom. Does that help? Is that what you're thinking?
Yes, it helps tremendously, brother. I will also want to add that his intimate knowledge of God prior to those horrendous events would have led him to understand that God's forgiveness really means a wiping of the slate clean. And I think that knowing God, as Jesus says in John 17:3, this is life eternal, that they might know thee, the only true God, and Jesus Christ whom thou hast sent. Unless we get to that point of deep and sensitive knowledge of God and his mercies, it will be difficult for us, I believe, to really even accept his forgiveness when we ask for it. So thank you for that response, my brother.
Yeah, I'm curious if anybody else has any other thoughts on that too, because it's a good question, right? How do you reconcile all that?
I was thinking also that this confidence of God being merciful to him will have started from the very moment when Nathan passed away thy sin from thee. Believe that he was very confident for that, and I think that was the foundation for his confidence.
Yeah. Yep. Good point. Yeah, really good point.
Nathan, you made mention of the situation that they are in the world today, and that Tobago and war of coming to Trinidad, what we may be faced with. And I think they were saying that I hope we as a selection do have something, in the cupboard or under the pillow. Well, I can with confidence say no, we don't have one. So we have a chapter of our life. Is it the same equivalent?
Yep.
Yeah.
Grabbing a gun, talk about protection. No?
Yeah. I'm really glad you brought that up, because I'm going to be totally honest from my life. A number of years ago, I was in a really scary situation in my life, and I actually had a baseball bat that I put beside my bed for several nights, because I was very concerned about some threats on my own personal life. And having looked at the issue of violence, gun violence, whatever the weapon may be, over the last couple of years, I'm ashamed that I did that, because it wasn't really putting any trust in God. It wasn't not fearing. It was, I'm going to control the situation in my hands, and I'm going to enact violence on a person when even Jesus wouldn't have enacted violence when he was threatened by the Romans when they arrested him, right? So, yeah, whatever the weapon is, knife, baseball bat, gun, slingshot, from the principles of Christ onwards to this era, the era that we live in right now, God has asked us to follow the example of Jesus, and that was an example of no violence. And that's what it says in Isaiah about Jesus, that he was a man of no violence, even though he was threatened. So in our era that we live in, that is the imperative for us. That is the example of Christ. We may be called on in the kingdom to be in a different situation. It's clear that some of the Israelites were called on to be in a different situation before the time of Christ as well. And that all still fit into God's mandate, his direction, and his wisdom. But right now, right here, violence is not our calling.
Isn't it a great challenge for us to go on self-defense?
Yeah, absolutely. That is a huge challenge for us in this era, and I think it'll be increasingly so as time goes along, is to show our faith and our lack of fear and our trust in God in these trying circumstances. Those are going to be challenges to us. And we may die as a result. But there are people in Hebrews 11, brothers and sisters, who died as well because they were not, willing to. That's right. Yeah.
Brother Sam, you can go ahead, but please put on your camera.
Thank you, Brother Simon. This is a question for Brother Dev.
Brother Sam, can you put on your camera?
Sorry?
Can you put the camera on, please?
Can I continue?
We are hearing you, but not seeing you. We'd like to see you, my brother.
You want to see me? That's okay, my brother. Can I be seen? Can I continue?
Yes, Brother Sam.
Thank you, brother. So this is a question for Brother Dev. And I also want to make a comment here on his talk there. I particularly enjoyed your distilled learning from the talk that you gave just now, which is, Lord, help me to learn what you need me to learn in what I'm going through. I think that is wisdom. And I thank you for that thought. The other one is a question. And that's taken from Exodus 31, verses 1 to 3 that you referenced. It is when it says that, behold, I have given with him Aholiab, the son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan, and in the hearts of all that are wise-hearted I have put wisdom. Now, is there a residual requirement for obtaining wisdom from God? Is it that it suggests that we need to be wise-hearted? And I just want some clarification on that, my dear brother, how you would want to interpret that scripturally.
But that is absolutely true. Can you hear me, brother?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right. So it is clear that these people didn't come with no knowledge, no orientation towards God, and no wisdom at all inside of them. My belief is that what God did was he took an object already in motion and pushed it faster by putting more ability and capacity in the person. Because that's what he does with you, Sam. That's what he does with me. As we are putting our heads into scripture and learning and growing in the word, God puts more understanding, more insights, more knowledge to make us more effective in helping ourselves and other people. So I agree with you, brother. Something was a prerequisite for that to be added to. Yes.
Thank you very much for that illumination, my dear brother. Thank you.
So his brother, the other brother Sam said, in other words, we have to bring something to the table. True.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Very true. Thank you.
Thank you, brothers and sisters, for your attention, participating in the discussion. But one thing we can learn from the talks today, you have sleepless nights, get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, say a prayer, read the word of God and study it, and you'll get more wisdom. In the hours of darkness, wisdom comes from the hours of light.
Beautiful.
So that's where some McCullough. The process of prayer, after singing him 340, when let us walk together in the bonds of love and peace. Can I get a question, Reverend? 3, 4, 1. God.